for joining today's Evolve webinar. We have these sessions every once in 2 months, and we gather here virtually. This is one of our ways to get back to the community, like share all the learnings and like put a pause on our deadlines. And this is also a way to bring in more fun. You'll also have like a lot of jokes here and there. And for today's session, we have Aman, who is a lovely person, and he's a product designer with more than 7 years of experience, and he has worked a lot of domains, be it fintech, ad tech, healthcare, and much more. He's definitely known for bridging like very bold design concepts and even real world implementations. The main thing about him is his creative problem solving. He can keep any bias aside and definitely work for speed and execution. And outside of work, you will find him as a very hardcore cricket fan and a very huge admirer of Steve Jobs. And if there's one thing which he truly loves is turning everything into a story. It could be anything, a product, it could be a journey, it could be a design challenge, or possibly even today's webinar itself. So I will now hand it over to Aman to take it up.
Thank you, Paddy, for the lovely introduction. And thank you, everyone who joined. So before we begin, I would like to give you a brief, not a brief, but a quick teaser of the session. So in this session, we'll be talking about, as Padmaja mentioned, Paddy mentioned, about the story of product design and the different steps involved, which is a lot of people won't talk about, but they are really essential. Also, not just the product design, but the surprise, but we'll try to understand the product designer and its story as well. Because product designer don't just solve problems, but they create beautiful products with so much care, love, and again, common sense, right? So let's start the session. So before we start the session, I have a question for you guys. That is, what do you think about product design and the product design? So I'll share one quick slide for you to share your answers. So you can scan this QR code and share your thoughts or your thinking or your concepts regarding product design and product designers. Yeah, I'm waiting for some lovely answers or creative one as well. Anyone who wants to go first? Now it's your time to break the ice. Yeah, I can see 4 people typing. Okay, creativity and creative thinkers, nice. Great. Problem solvers, nice. Nice. I can see some answers on Zoom chat as well. Smooth experience builder. Okay, nice. Imagination made useful, interesting. Superhumans, haha. I think we are still yet to reach that stage, but yeah.
Hopefully soon.
Yeah, definitely. We will need help from AI, I guess. Jarvis Copilot. So I see, really interesting answers, and I'll just wait for like more 30 minutes more, 30 seconds more, and then move on to the story of product design. Product design is the interface for the product design. Okay, nice. Okay, last 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Last one is nice one, right? Creative with brain. So again, I'll move on to my presentation with the thought of and looking at your answers, right? I feel everybody thinks this way, right? Because whenever you hear about product design or product designer, two words come to your mind, which is one is problem solving, again, as we saw the answers. And second thing is every day is a creative day or every day must be a creative day, right? And whenever we hear someone says, I'm a product designer or a UI designer or any kind of designer, right? We always feel, okay, that person is great. Every day of his or her will be a creative day. But that story is, partially correct. There is one important word that is missing, and that is not every day is a creative day. And next question you will have, so what makes product design creative? Again, in this session, that is all about what we will learn today. So next is we'll be talking about the story of product design. And let me tell you this thing, that every story has 2 acts, one intermission and one hero, right? That's a typical story for you. But design story has 3 acts, 2 intermissions and 2 heroes, and a director called as product designer, right? So let's see the whole story of product design. But first, let me ask you, like, what is a product? What is a story, right? Because every story has a lot of things. It has script, it has emotions, it has a structure, a lot of different things. But when we talk about the product, right, in the whole product design story, then everything around you that you use or see or you can touch, right, that is called a product. And it can be of physical form, experience. It can be of a digital form as well, but you should always be able to see it, you can feel it, you can use them, right? And that's the simple definition of a product. It can be a car, it can be a mobile phone, or it can be your airpods. So everything around you that you see is a product, excluding terms and condition, obviously, excluding living beings. We should not use them, right? So we should make friends with them, right? So that's a simple definition of a product. And every product has two parts. First, it will have always a form, right? How the product visually looks. So whenever you look into any product or when you see any product, right, you're always amazed to see its form, right? Or maybe sometimes you might not feel good about that form, but that is the first thing that you see about any product, how the product visually looks. And these are some statements that we generally feel about the form of the product when we look at them, and they are really beautiful or really amazing. For example, we always look at Tesla cars and see, okay, this is super cool, right? This is from the future. We also look at different, like, AirPods, like, eco Amazon ecos, and feels like, this feels modern, right? So these are like the typical statement that we say when we look at or talk about the form of the product. And the second part comes, which is again the very important part of the product, which is the function, right? And function is all about how does the product work. Because at first you can see the product, at first you can see the form of the product, but at the end you have to be able to use that, right? It should be easy to use. And when you try those product, you always feel, okay, this is super easy to use, this feels super efficient, or everything seems seamless. So these are, like, some examples or quotes that we say when we have a product which works really well, right? So every product story has two part. One is story, one is form, and the second is function. And we always hear this statement in the product design domain that design is not how it looks, but how it works. But again, let me tell you that this is again a partial truth, because it only focus about how it works. But ideally, the product design should be, or any product should always look beautiful. It should feel good, and also it should work in a very simple manner, right? And that is how design should be, or how a product should. Now let's talk about the two heroes of the product design story, hero one and hero two. And again, every story has heroes, and those heroes should win at the end. So our first hero is the company. And at the end, since products are built by the company, different companies make different products. And when those products in the market wins, right, then eventually the company wins and they create more products. So there are, like, certain design impacts on the company in terms of the product design. The number one is always the revenue growth. When the product is good, when the product is designed well, it always increases, or it gives the profit to the company. And iPhone is one good example, where Apple has reinvented the phone in 2007, and their profits or the whole company revenues change in the next decade, right? So that was like one good example of how design changed the direction or the revenue of the company. The second is the user retention. When people love your product, and when company design good products, the people always love to come back. And Netflix is again one good example, where no matter wherever you are, whenever you are feeling bored, or whenever you have something exciting to watch, you will always come to Netflix, and you have, like, great suggestions and great things to watch, without giving a single thought, right? So you always have something, you always love to come back to the Netflix. So that's one, again, very great impact of design on the company. Second is, when products are design focused, it gives a good competitive edge to the company, right? And again, Tesla is one good example, where they started introducing a cool looking structure, the overall physical product, the shape and everything was very futuristic and very cool. And it gave them a competitive edge, where other companies like BMW, or any other companies, not just BMW, but there was a, like, good competitive edge between Tesla and the other companies. So they focused on the design, and they were, like, heavily focused on the design side of the impact. So these are some core impacts that design can have on the company side when they focus on the design side. Second hero of the story is the customer, right? And again, when the company builds the product, it always builds the product for the customers, and customers should always win when they use the product or when they feel those products. And again, we have certain design impact on the customer, where the first design impact is the great usability. So we talked about the function of the product and also the form of the product. And great usability comes into that picture, where if the product is well designed, if it is seamless, it's easy to use, then people will always feel it's a very good product and it has a great usability. So Uber is one example where whenever you open that, you almost know, right, what to do, where to, what are those cabs, where to add your the destination or the pickup point, and also what options to choose, in the footer side of the application. So that's a one good example where design has really provided this great usability to the customer. Second is, a well-designed product always saves time and efforts for the users, for the customers. And AirPod is again one good example where you don't have to open the Bluetooth, connect it, those things. You just have to pull it out from your pocket and AirPods are connected, right? So it saves a great time and efforts. So that's a second impact. The third is emotional connect, and that's a very important one because people should remember when they use your product, when they experience your designs, or experience whatever you're designed for them. And Duolingo is one good example where they have used like different colors, different emojis, different characters to build this whole emotional connect. And everybody who just wants to learn, right, they always have this application in mind. Okay, let's go to Duolingo and let's start learning, because that whole experience is so story form, and the whole it's so simple, it's so colorful that everybody loves to come back to Duolingo. So these are again three important design impact that a well-designed product can have on the customer side. Now, again, we have this good statement that I have always quoted, like great product balance business needs with customer needs, because it has to it should make business win, and also it should make customers win, right? We cannot compromise on the quality, we cannot compromise on any one hero. Both heroes should win at the end of the story. And then let's talk about the three acts of the product design story, where first is research and understanding, that's the act one. Second is the creative part, designing and development of the product. And the third one is, I'll keep it a surprise for you. So we'll focus on the first part, research and understanding. So first of all, how do we know what to build? And as a product designer, that's a very big question, because when you start, you always have one idea or one imaginative thought. Okay, this could be the future, but we really want to know what should be the form, whether we are building the right thing, whether we will make the profit as a company, right? So that is the number one question that we always ask: how do we know what to build? And there are three important things that we always figure out. One is we figure out what are the user goals, or what could be the user goal for a particular product. What could be the business goals, because at the end business has to win. And the third one is the product goal, because we have to align both user goals and business goals and make it a product which is useful, which has a good form, and which is functional as well. And when we figure this out, we actually build a great product. And that's the aim that we should always aim it for. And next is, how do we know the business needs? So again, now I'll start introducing the different core directives in the stories, because as a product designer, we don't do everything, right? We always talk to other people, we have team members, and we always have to connect with them, collaborate with them to understand their different needs. So when we talk about the business needs, we have co-directors as CEO, sales team, or customer support team. And again, depends on the company or the team structure, whether we are able to talk to CEOs or the sales team or the customer support. But these are like very important people in the company, where we can always understand the business needs. And there are like certain things that we go through as a designer to understand business need as well. One is company vision, and generally you will always hear this term called business requirement document. In short, we call it BRD documents, where we can to learn about the company vision, or what the company is thinking in terms of a particular product or the particular market. So that's an important one. Second is, there will be always be the key performance indicator. In short, again, KPIs we call it. And these can be the indicator where we can measure the success of the product or success of the business, whether a product was able to make the business for the company or not. And there are like certain key performance indicator, which is customer retention rate, which we talked about as a user retention. Second thing is daily and monthly active users. So these are again certain examples that are part of the key performance indicator, but again, it depends on company to company and product to product. But these are like two important ones where we can understand the business need of the. Second is, how do we understand, or how do we know the product needs? And now we have the co-directors as product managers and business analysts, and we can always connect with them. They provide us product requirement documents called as PRD document, which has every feature, function, and every constraint laid out in the document, where we can go through that, we can connect with them to understand that more in deeply, so that we know what's the product requirement or how we want to build the product. Second is, we always have competitive research, right? We have to understand the other products in the market, because that's how we fill the gap, right? That's how we build the product, because we have to know, okay, these are the areas that we can, really fit in our product in the market. So that's the second thing we do to understand the product needs. The third one is, which is really important, we have to be very active in collaborations with product managers or the business analysts, because there will be a lot of questions. The way of thinking of product managers and the designer are a lot different, and we have to talk to them in a language where we understand what they want to build at the end. So we have understood business needs, we now know product needs. And I feel, we are good to make a good product. But this is what happens when we jump to directly to the product side, right? As a company, everyone loves it, but users, user will always see the product like this. So we have to understand the humans, right? And let me share a secret about humans. And this is the secret, right? What humans say they need and what they actually need are very often different things. And that's really true, right? And there are certain examples, for example, like this, right? Maybe the design of this path must have thought, okay, we built such a great path with so much, interlocking tiles, screens, those many. But ideally, the user will just need a shortest path, right? They will always figure out a simpler way. So this is one example. Second example is, Henry Ford. Again, that is from the Google. Like, Henry Ford said that if I had asked people what they wanted, people would have said faster horses, right? Because they always knew, like, one, like if I have like four horses, then it will always, give me more power in terms of, faster speeds. But they did not know that they need a automobile or a car, or like, in future Tesla. So people are always, say different things, do different things. And this is a very important statement, where as a designer you always feel, okay, how do we understand human needs? So again, we have certain methods where we can understand humans, and we have methods, but before that we talk about the co-directors. And again, as a product designer, we focus on the overall chain, but we have experts called as user researchers who actually go into details to understand the human needs. They perform certain methods, certain research methods where they understand the human needs, and also they convey us to, okay, these are the needs, these are some of the insights that they have gathered, and that's how we collaborate with researchers and understand, okay, this is really what a human needs, or this is what they are saying, but they don't know the form of the product. So there are two methods which user researcher, or as a collaboration of user researcher and product designer, can do. The number one is, we call it primary research, and in that, first thing is, we should always talk to the users, because there are like a lot of stories, there are a lot of frustration that people generally talk about when they converse, or when you directly talk to them. And that is the number one, user interviews. Second is user surveys. You can always, when you want to gather the data from thousand, or thousand of people, then you can always put out different surveys asking different questions. Again, you can decide on the questions, how you want to ask them. The third one will be the usability testing, where instead of asking them or connecting them, you can just show them any product or any experience and just understand or observe them. Okay, this is what they are doing, and that's how behaving, these are their reactions, right? So that's called a usability test. And then the fourth one is field studies. So again, that's a part of the usability testing, but in this, you don't give them anything, right? You just observe how people are interacting with different products, or how they are using different things, and you just make different research points, and you gather insights on all those things. So these are called the primary research, which is where you as a designer, where you as a user researcher talk to directly to the people, right? And then we have the secondary research, where we actually take the data from the primary research part, and we try to create the personas, the image of the picture, image of the users in our mind, so that whenever we are designing, we always reflect back to the user, and we always put ourselves in that persona and try to ask the question, okay, whether this product is right, whether this is solving my problem, or is this cool to use, is this really seamless or not. It's right. So that's why we create the personas. Again, there are no rules how to create the persona. It should be clear in your mind. It should give a clear picture of the people or the customers, so that whenever you have any question, you should be able to answer that very simply, right? So that's how we create the personas. Second is the user journey maps. Again, persona is good, but that is just a person, right? But when we try to create their journeys based on our primary research methods, then we really understand the emotions, what they feel at different steps, and what are their pain points, or what are the opportunities where we can improve or give them a delightful experience. So that's a user journey map. Third one is the customer support teams, and that is again one more step that we do in a company, where we try to understand what customer support teams are getting, like what requests they are getting as a team, right? Because there are like a lot of pain points that people generally come to customer support to solve, right? So we always can connect with them, we can get the feedbacks and understand the pain points. And the fourth one will be public user reviews, which we can find it at the public forums or under Google reviews or Apple reviews or any other. It can be like locally, it can be global as well. So we can always figure out some pain points of feedback from those areas. So that's the secondary research part. So these are like the two important parts where we can understand the human needs. One is primary research and the second is secondary research. Now that is the intermission one. So we can take a 1 minute, 1 second pause and then start the second.
If anyone has any questions up till now, feel free to drop in the chat or even unmute yourself and ask Aman
Yeah.
before we move ahead.
Okay, I think let's move.
Yep.
Okay, so finally we completed the Act 1, and now we know what to build. We discussed product requirements with product manager, business analyst, who to build for. We understood who the users are, who could be the users of the product, and why to build it. Because the company, there will be a reason to build it. There will be some indicators, some success metric that we have to figure out. So let's start the creative part, which is Act 2. And before starting, this is like how you feel as a product designer, because you will always have this question, how can I make this experience feel effortless? How do I turn this idea into something people actually love? Because as a designer, you are always thinking a lot of things, you have a lot of ideas. So this is, again, that's my feeling, but again, a lot of people can have a different feelings, but that's how I feel. The creative part start with the first step, which is discover and define phase. So in this phase, we actually try to define the user journey, the user flows of the whole thing, right? How like, remember we did the user journey map. So in this step, we try to define what could be the right step, what could be the right way how the user should navigate. And the second thing we do is we try to lay out the right set of information, because user don't need to see everything at the same time, right? So we have to really understand what is the right information and what is the right screen or right step to show it, right? So that's how we build the whole information architecture. And the third one is product, which I feel everybody loves, because everybody loves to sketch, loves to explore different ideas, right? So that's how we discover and define our product concept or product ideas. And after that, you will always feel like, oh, okay, so many great ideas. But this is not true, because design is an iterative process and feedback driven process. And there is one more step, which is user feedback, which we have to take. And this is what happens, when we miss that user testing or checking with the users. So we should always do that. We should always talk to our customers through sketches, through ideas, and understand whether they really want that, what we design. And the next part is designing the experience, the UI part, the interface, or the form part. And it starts with designing the UI schemes, interfaces, we call it, right? Where we define the visual guidelines, we craft the different screens, we think about different interactions and those things, which is our second part, which is the micro interaction. And this is again a very important part of the designing the experience, because when we talk about this delightfulness, seamlessness, right? This is where micro interactions come into the picture, because we have to think of interaction in a way where people or users or customers doesn't feel about those interactions. They should be very smooth. Even user should not be aware of, okay, I'm doing this step and I'm looking at these different items, right? Those should be very seamless. And the third thing, which is again very important as a designer, we have to build that system, because at the end the product has to be developed. And when we define this design system, we define the different rules, different components, or different things that has to follow while developing the product. So these are the three important part of the designing the experience. Now I feel, yeah, creative part is done. So exciting. We did so many things, but there is one more thing, which is a development phase. So this is one scenario which happens a lot of time, right? Everyone will, from the development team, from the marketing team, from the front end teams, and everyone have this question: should we ask him? And they refer to, yeah, he's a designer, because he designed the product and he will always have the every answer of the product, right? So this will be the situation most of the time. And the next part is how we'll be involved in the development phase. So first thing is, we have some co-directors who are front-end engineers, back-end developers, product managers, QA teams, or there can be other teams as well. And it starts with the product walkthroughs, where we have to give the walkthrough or give a presentation or tell the story of the product so everybody understand what we want to build, what is the aim, what are the interactions, or what are the different decisions that we have to take while building the product. So that's a very important part. And second is the design support. In this, once we give the product walkthroughs, there will be some items where we have to reiterate, we have to support them by clarifying their doubts. People can have different questions. They might not understood the different points during their walkthrough, so we will have to continuously provide the designs. The third item is design audit. So once they understood the product through product walkthroughs, they we clarified everything, we clarified their each and every doubt. But now once they have developed the product, so before releasing it to the market or before finally getting into the shape, we perform the design audits. And that is again a key part, because at this stage we figure out the bugs, we figure out the quality of the product, because quality is the key part of any great product. So these are the three steps where we are involved as a designer in the development process. And that's again the intermission two and our product is. So I'll again reflect back to the different phases, right? And I'll ask you again, just ask you to remind few things like, we started with gathering user needs, product needs, and the business needs. We designed beautiful schemes, interactions, and help the team develop it. But did we build the right product or just build the product the right way? Right. So that's a good question to have it. And that's where our third act begins, which is what we do after product is live. So again, we have co-directors called as product managers, CEOs, sales teams. Again, it can be development team, technical team as well. And the first thing we do is we collaborate with them, we talk to them, and we understand how the KPIs are working. Because at the start of the product design journey, we started with define certain KPIs. And at the end, we have to track them, whether we design the right product, whether people are happy, whether people happily coming back, or are we generating some revenue or not. So this is a very important step. The second step is product audit. It might happen, during the audit we might have missed, or there are like certain areas that has not improved, that has been not improved as a quality. So we try to perform the product audits right after it, just to check whether we can change anything, whether we can improve anything based on the KPIs that we are tracking. Because it might happen that there are certain things which people might be confused about, but we felt as a product designer or product builders that those were right. So at this step, we perform the product audits. We try to analyze, okay, if there is anything which is not working and how we can improve it as quickly as possible. So that's the product audit stage. The third one is very important again, to understand how people are reacting to our product, and this is again similar to our public review thing, where we can go to Google app reviews, we can go to public forums to understand how people are feeling. We can go to Twitter, we can go to Facebook as well, different websites to understand how people are feeling. And it can again have both positive and negative feedback, but that's a very critical step to perform as a design. And that's the end of the product design story. So now let's talk about the director story, right? And you remember we had the director, the product designer, right? So as a product designer, we have to go through such a big long story, right? Where we have to go from act one, act two, act three, and then also understand the different heroes like hero one and hero. So as a designer, a lot of people will focus on, you just have to be good in visual design or UX design, right? Like simple items. But you saw, right, how we have different step at different process at different step, right? So there are like two major skills that we have to develop as a product designer. So one is expertise area, second is the broad skills. So let's talk about first expertise skill. So number one will be the ideation and the concept. As a product designer, we should be really good in generating multiple ideas, generating multiple concepts as well, because that's how we can decide which ideas to reject, which ideas to keep on, or how to think about different unique ideas as well, right? So that's the very important skill that we have to develop. The second will be the visual design and the design system. So not only the ideas, but we have to be really we really have to be good in understanding the different color things, color psychology, typographies, and other hierarchical structures, where we can put together a form of the product which is really good looking, which really appeals user, and that is a very delightful skill, right? So that's how where we learn the visual, or that visual design should be the key skill for that. And the second part will be the design system, where whenever whatever we design or whatever we put together as a visual design, we should be able to create the rules out of it, create the components out of it, so that we can share it to the development team and they feel very easy to use that design system. They should be very easy to understand by them. They should be very it should be very easy for them to use them and create the product in a very good manner and also in a very fast manner. And the third one will be the UX laws and the human psychology. And again, that's a very important part because when we create or think of the ideas, when we design the product, we also have to understand whether that product or whether that color will suit those type of users or not, right? And that's where the human psychology, the human behavior, and also different set of user UX laws comes into the picture. So these are like certain expertise skills that we have to learn as a product design. Now let's talk about the broad skills. So number one will be the empathy and storytelling, which is really important because when we are talking to the users, when we are trying to understand them, we have to empathize with them. We have to put ourselves in their shoes so that we understand what they are really talking about, what are their actual pain points, and what are the frustrations. And storytelling is important because we can't just talk about in a product language or a business language. We have to put together a story. We have to share the facts, share the question in form of storytelling so that people are very open to share their side of the story, their side of the pain points, right? So this is like very important skill, which is the broader side of the skill that we have to learn. Second will be the communication and presentation. So we can empathize, we can create stories, but we should be able, we should be good in communicating those things, and we should be able to present them in a way where people are very happy to, or very not very confused, very simple manner they are sharing their stories or their pain points. And the third one will be the cross functional collaboration. We have seen like different co-directors in the whole journey. We are talking to product managers, we are talking to CEOs, sales people, customer teams, QA teams. So we have to be really good in collaboration where we can understand each and everyone's point of view, each and everyone's doubts or pain points as well, because every person will talk differently to you and you can't just have a same tone or same way of presentation or same way of communication. You have to be really good or efficient in this collaboration part. So in the parallel universe, when I say like we have to learn product design as we have to learn expertise and we have to learn as broad skill, then we are generally called as T-shaped design. And when I create the graph of it or when I see the visually, then this will be the shape of that designer, where we have certain skills which are broader level, and certain skills which are at the expertise level. So that is the product design. And nutshell, you know, product designer can be a doctor, a policeman, or a lawyer as well, right? Where we have to, do different things. Like, as a politician, we sometimes have to shape vision, empower teams. As a lawyer, we have to diagnose problems either when the product is live or when the product is live. We have to advocate for the users and defending different design decisions. So this is who the product designer is, right? We have to play a different role as a designer. And when you look at this thing, when you look at the different screens, you sometimes feel, this is what you feel at the end, right? Kabhi kabhi lagta hai aap hi bhagwan hai, because there are like a lot of things that you are doing as a designer, and you have to be, really careful at each and every step. So that's how you feel at the end. And now I have one more question for you, which is, still you think every day is a creative day? Yeah, thank you. Shall we start on the questions?
Yeah, before we get to the questions, so webinars is something which we are definitely doing, but we also have our community where we constantly put like a lot of updates in terms of our webinars and a lot of design challenges, and even getting feedbacks from all the industry leaders. So that's the QR code which was there. Aman, if you can just go back to the previous screen. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, there it is.
ठीक.
Yeah, so even apart from webinars, we have like a lot of activities and everything which we do in our communities. So you will find a lot of like-minded people, be it students, professionals, and everyone. So this is a space for everyone to know, learn a lot of new things. People share their designs, get feedbacks, and a way to connect with us. So if you also want to join our community, this is a way to go. We host like a lot of webinars, a lot of challenges and games every week. So that should be fun. Yeah, we can go to the Q&A.
Okay, I'll start from the top then. So first question is from Mohammed. The question is how the AI has affected product design. So that's an interesting one, and I was expecting that question to be the very first question. And I feel very grateful for the AI. That's a simple answer. And when we say the affected part, right? So I feel it has empowered us as a designer where we can think about different ideas and also validate them very quickly, right? Because we can talk to AI, we can ask AI to visualize those ideas so that we can understand, okay, whether that idea, whether that functionality or form will be very good or not, and we can have good ideas, a lot number of ideas to share with other people. And right now AI has given us the capability to quickly build those ideas as a prototypes. So I feel it has not affected, but it has empowered us to think more, think original or think creative. So that will be my answer for the that. Second one is, should we ever update, change the persona, and when and how we should do it? So again, that's an interesting one because persona is first thing that we do, before whenever we start the project. And when we see that, right, update and change, right? So that's a very, again, that's a very, subjective question. But what we should do ideally is like, we should never change that persona, but we should always evolve it, or we should always add more insight to that, right? Because we have to also understand the journey. Like, when we started that project, we had one persona in mind, right? But after 6 months down the line, we know certain new things about that persona. So instead of changing that persona, we can always write those insight which we initially talked about, but right now those are like change or evolve. Because right, the way world is changing, right? We can't just have one person. We can't just think about always like अपने दादाजी की तरह नहीं सोच सकते. We always have to think about like, what if that dadaji had a son, or what if that dadaji had you know created an account on the Facebook, right? So those behaviors can always change. So we should have that picture, but we should always write those new insights, new updates, or what they are doing right now as a additional thing to always connect the dot with that first person, and also that whatever new learning that we have gathered so far. So yeah, that will be a very funny answer, but yeah, that's answer analogy I will talk about. Okay. Also, my client says research is not needed. What should I do? So again, people will always say no to good things. But when we say, right, they are not agreeing on the research part. So again, I shared one a good example, right? What if we miss the user testing, right? So and that happens always, right? All the time. And again, it depends on the other people, how much value they give to the users. But as a people, we can always talk about the insights, give them a like really quick insights about the user feedback. Because right now what happens is like we generally take like 2 or 3 months to show those insights or those things. But I really feel if we can give them that very good indicator at the right start, or maybe like within first or 2 weeks, again that's a subjective, again the whole timing part. But I feel if we can give them that validation that research can really improve their business. And again, that depends how we think, or how we can figure out those things which can really improve those like metrics or KPIs. Then I feel they will realize the value of the research, because nothing will happen with talking. So we'll always have to share those insights and those powerful indicators. Okay, research has done this to our business, or done this to our KPIs. So again, that can be the answer. Is a specialization direction necessary to choose for a product designer? So I need more understanding on that. Arsh, can you unmute yourself and if you are in the call?
Hello.
Yes, Arsh.
So this was intended also for outside UX research. So do you have to specialize in certain products or things in order to be a successful product designer? That was my question. Or can you successfully also become a generalized product designer?
So if I understand your question correctly, you mean like the product designer for different products, right? Whether you want to be a product designer of a digital product, or a physical product, or any other type of product, correct?
Yeah. Should you get sort of an expertise in types of products? That was my question.
Yeah, so definitely it is going to be the case always, because as a product designer, you have to pick a domain. Okay, I want to be good in, or develop my expertise in physical products, or it can be digital product, or it can be a other thing as well, right? And again, in the product design as well, you can pick different physical product as well, right? Whether you are a good product designer of laptop type of physical product, or mobile phones, or maybe just a automobile or the car designer, right? So that specialization, or that choice of specialization, will always be there. You have to pick that thing. And when we say generalized skills, or generalized skills of the designer, then there will be some generalized skill that we have to learn. And again, that is, as I mentioned, empathy will be one thing, collaboration will be the second thing, and the important one which I feel is really important is the storytelling way, right? Storytelling skills. So those will be the general skill which will be applicable in whatever specialization you will choose. So that's how you learn or go in the particular direction as a product design.
Thank you.
Yeah, next is, so what does a product designer do? Research, UX, UI, marketing design, all of it. Yeah, again, not all of it, but they should have the knowledge of all of it, because we definitely have our co-directors, we have user researchers, we sometimes have visual designers, micro designer, micro interaction designer, and also design system builder. But when you choose product design as a domain, right, you have to understand from end to end, right? You have to understand the whole spectrum, how the research happens, what we get from the user research, how do we build the micro interactions. You don't have to learn obviously the tools or the nitty gritty of those areas, but you have to have a knowledge of how things work, right? Because as a designer, you are the director of the product design story. So as a designer, as a director, you should have a good understanding of how things work, whether they are logical. You have to really understand those things. So need not learn everything, but have a good knowledge about research, UX, human behavior, design system testing as well, right? Because at the end, you have to decide whether things are moving in the right direction or not. So that will be my answer. Second is I'm working on a service-based company. If I want to product design a Hocken, few projects we do research and usability testing and user persona. So Rajini, I would like to understand your role. Like you mentioned service-based company, but what's your role currently?
I'm a senior UX designer here.
Okay, 3 years. So again, I think a lot of things you are already doing it, which I feel you must be learning about human behavior, human interactions, different laws. You must be designing product wireframes and everything. So the only
Yes.
thing which is I feel missing as a product designer thing, which will be the visual design part or the interaction part, right? Because as a product designer, you should be able to define or design different product ideas, think about ideas, but at the end you should be able to create those ideas, right? Visualize those ideas as well, and that will be a good skill to for you to learn. Basically, learn visual design, color psychology, typographies, and whatever things come under the visual side of the product. And also design system will be a good skill to add it, but I feel visual design and also micro interaction will be a key skill to learn as a UX designer to become a really good product designer.
Aman, actually, I will be playing both roles, UI and UX, but here the only part which I'm missing is a metrics thing. So that part, because of the service based company, we can't get chance to work with the products. Large scale, we will get need to work on the products like e-commerce website. Most probably we'll get the redesigning of the e-commerce websites. Like that only I
Hmm.
will got that opportunity. So at the time only I'm squeezing myself to fit into the product related things there. So if I want to become a product designer, how can I showcase my work in the portfolio as well? Because it's very difficult for me to convey it into the interviewers to whether I'm coming from the service base, so they are asking differently the questions. So that's the problem.
Okay, so first of all, whatever product we design, everything has a metric, right? If you are designing the website, then there will be metrics like customer satisfaction, or there must be some sign up or login or cart related metrics and all those things, right? And every product has that, right? And since you mentioned website, these are some of the metrics that you can always talk about in your case studies, first of all. And second thing is when you talk about the product manager or a service based company, right? So we always connect or collaborate with different people from the other company. So we can always ask them what are the metrics they are focusing on, or what they want to achieve when they want to redesign this thing, or when they feel this product will be live, right? And they will have some answers, whether they will say we need more signups, we need more logins, we need people's more time on our website, right? So these will be the different metrics that we generally hear from them, right? And those are
Oh,
things that you can mention in the product in your case studies. And when we
okay.
connect that with the product design thing, right? So as a product designer, the thing is we need to understand when we hear those metrics, when we hear those indicators, right? So we have those in our mind. We always know these will be the end result for the company, right? They need this to be grown up, or they need to they need this thing to grow, right? So whenever we are thinking of the product, or whenever we are suggesting some ideas or solution, right? So they should always connect those things, right? So for example, if I'm creating a landing page, right? And if that landing page is not supporting my increase in the user signups or user time on website, then that idea is not good, right? So that's how
Mhm.
we connect. That's how we become a good designer, where we understand those metrics and we think about the ideas, or we think about the concept which actually support those metrics. And when we provide those ideas to the team members, the product manager, then definitely they will always realize, okay, this is a very good idea. This can really, apply to our metrics, apply to our indicator, or improve those indicators. So that's how you can, form the whole case study part, the whole product design skill set.
Yeah, understood. Thank you.
To avoid personal biases. So I feel design is about true objectivity, how to avoid personal bias. So yes, again, I need more understanding. Yes, can you unmute yourself and elaborate?
Yeah, yeah. It's about general design part. Yeah, it's not a specific vertical or a UI or just a UX. So it's more about generalized term. When we design something, actually design comes like you get a requirement or you get understanding of from somewhere and you want to create out of it. What happens is we might, like you said before, we have to be in the shoes of the user or analyst or whatever. But how to avoid, sometimes we want to create it in certain way. Sometimes your client or someone who comes with the requirement comes up in a different way, and you want to work with a clear objectivity, but at the end you might flow with your bias or something.
Okay, so if I understood it correctly, so you are saying that there will be some objective and key functionality that will be defined by the business or the product people. But while designing or while putting yourself in the customer shoes, how you can avoid your personal bias or how you can avoid your, personal, I would say the personal experience or maybe the personal thoughts, right? That's your question.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Okay. So first of all, we have two things. Number one will be the way business and product needs the product, right? They will definitely have some thoughts. Okay, this is how we want the product. This is what we want to achieve, right? And the second part will be the customer who are, they don't know anything about the product. They just want their goal to be solved. They just need to perform certain tasks, right? And as a user, as a product designer, you have certain methods again to understand, how user feel or how they do their things right now without that product in the market or without that product in their hands, right? So they will always perform something, like, so if I give you an example, before the cars we always have that tanga thing, right? That we used to ride horses and those things. But once we have the car thing, once we have the automobiles, we obviously, like jump from 1930, simple car to like, super futuristic car, right? But this thing people did not know, right? They wanted, right? And as a product designer, that's our role. First of all, to understand what they believe could be possible or what they are thinking right now, right? And when we say the personal bias, right, again, you also have some thoughts. Okay, I want this product to be like this. I think this can be a good product in the future. But right now we have to really understand them, how they are thinking. And it's good to have like our personal thinking as well involved in that whole process, because every person has a different taste, every person has a different way of thinking, everyone has different ideas, right? But we have to find a common place, a common ground where we are solving the customer needs, but in our own way, or without focusing too much on our personal biases or our personal thoughts, right? We have to understand them. We have to understand their belief system more, I would say, instead of what they are saying, because sometimes what we say and what we believe are two different things. So we have to understand them very deeply. We have to understand the product, and then we have to not apply too much of our personal biases, but we have to keep it aside and then really understand what they're really looking for in the future. So I would say that is one thing which can do it as a product design. If you have any follow-up question, you can always ask it.
No, fine.
ठीक है, next. ठीक है, so this ठीक है, we have, I have a question. I am a CSE student, so I have a question that like, my field CSE, my field is product designing. In short, how can I explore the combination of both fields? And so let me be interested for the common of two. So, okay, Viva, that's an interesting question, and that's the same question I had 7 years ago when I was in my CSE domain, when I was studying engineering, computer science engineering, and luckily I found a person who talked about Steve Jobs, and my whole journey changed, right? And that's a very good, first of all, that's a very good thing to have, right? As a designer, you are thinking about the product design domain, right? Because when we come from the computer side or the computer science side, we really have this understanding of how computer works, how there are like different experience, the experience of the laptop, the experience of the mobile phones, or the experience of the tablet, and also know the nitty gritty of the inside part of the different technologies, right? We know how we can optimize different things, right? How we can build good experience through technical knowledge as well, right? So that's a very good skill to have. And when we say about jumping or connecting the product design with that computer science all apart, so that's again important because in a computer science or engineering we learn about the inside part of the computer, right? How things work, how things are coded, how the experience is built technically. But when we learn about the product design, we learn about the customer side of the thing, right? How customers or how the humans or how the people experience those product, right? So when we start learning about that, then as a designer, when we become that designer who has a strong fundamental of computer science knowledge, right, then it gives us good edge among all the designer, because right now then we can obviously have the knowledge of how to build things, but also at the same time we have the knowledge of how we can build a good experience for the customers or the users, right? So I feel that's a very good combination to have. And you can always start from understanding the human psychology part, how we design, how we think of the ideas, how we think of the different concepts and all the things, because as a technical student we always think about system design. So again, as an engineer we learn about system design, but when we connect the product design thing, we actually reverse that thing and we think about design system. So when we connect that thing, it gives a good combination and it gives a good edge to us as a designer, right? So I think that will be my answer. Hope I answered the question. Binish Bhai has a question. I have a question related to geographical user behavior. Why do Chinese filming compared to global, and what does that say about the design priorities? So again, Mahesh bhai, that's an interesting question, and that's an interesting exercise as well for us as a designer to understand how different apps or how different people have different experience, right? Because I remember we were designing a website for the US people, and the way we designed the website was for the Indian people, but we received the feedback that US people don't look at the website that way. So we have to understand the culture first of all, how the culture is, right? For example, if I talk about in India, right, we have a low trust environment, right, where we have to obviously show, a lot of calculation, lot of things at every step, right? If I talk about the billing part, right, and we don't like, too much of creativity or too much of interaction of those things. We always love ki, de do and I'll be happy, right? I'm okay to put in those efforts, right? So there will be different cultures, there will be different behaviors, human psychology as well, right? So as a designer, we have to understand who we are designing for. For example, as you mentioned, key like Chinese apps appear cluttered and overwhelming, and I feel that has become the norm there, and that is what people have believed ki, app aise hi hote hain, right? These are the actual apps until they experience any other experience or any other app, other product or something, right? So that's how the whole thing is built up. And as a designer, obviously you can't do too much about that thing. You can't change people's priority, you can't change culture, but you can always push that creativity or some great ideas where people can change their thought process and think, okay, this can be another way, right? For example, cred is one good example where they don't provide the search, right? Again, there will be a lot of people who agree, okay, I can't search, but they are, again, there are certain setbacks that they have to deal with. They might lose some users, because that is a very hard decision, and that anyone can make it, right? So it depends on the different culture have different, like different understanding or different requirements. But as a designer, we have to understand how they feel it, whether whether we need to push the designs, whether we need to introduce some creative thing, whether we need to change the whole thing or not, right? So, and again, you can't obviously do it alone. You will also have to have the support of the company and the other people in the whole company, right? So yeah, that's my answer. Finish by any follow-up questions? So moving on to next question. Could I get the PPT? I guess TK, I'm not sure whether we can share that, but we do have a recording on the YouTube. TK.
Yeah, I think there are one or two questions above also. So one of them is from Yagdish. What he's also asking is, of all the acts which you mentioned so far and the steps within those. So which are the skills which anyone would need to learn first if they start their career in product design?
Interesting one. The number one skill will be like we grow our worldwide vocabulary, right? So we have to start building our visual library or visual vocabulary, right? Where we are trying to observe different product and trying to understand how things are working or observe them more deeply, right? Because every product is designed in a different way, right? And there are different decisions that the people who have designed those products would have taken, right? So we have to start observing more, start retaining, or start building our visual library where we are again having library of good products versus bad product as well, right? So that will be the number one skill. And second thing is the ideation part, where when we look at certain thing, right, as a designer, and when we know, okay, this is for example a bad design, then as a designer or just as a person, just as a creative person, how can I make it good, how can I make it beautiful, yeah, fair, workable or good functional as well, right? So you should be having like just random ideas, random thoughts, or not, right? Because those are like very human related skill that you have to learn before jumping to any theoretical knowledge, such as visual design or micro interactions or UX laws or any other thing. So these two skills will be very core. And one more important thing, which is the empathy part, storytelling part, because you have to understand people, right? You have to understand what they say, how they do things, why they are doing things as well, right? So I would say before jumping to any theory, any any theoretical or subjective knowledge, you should be good in observation. You should build your visual library, visual pattern library, or ideas of good product and bad product. And the third one will be the storytelling and the empathy. Yeah.
We have one more question from Danish. So what he's
Mhm.
mentioning, as designers, we empathize with users, but also need to align with the business goals. So how would you balance the user needs and the business objectives without compromising either of them?
So your question has two important words. One is balance, and the second is compromising, right? So I would talk about compromising first. We should never compromise any of the goal, right? The product should fulfill business needs and user needs at the same time, right? And again, balancing is a good word, but again, when we are trying to understand the user needs and also the business objective, right, then there will be an overlap which we have to figure out, right? And it will be a very good overlap when you find it, how people want it and how business want it, right? And iPhone is again one good example. People wanted smartphones, but the way it was given to the people was not the right way, right? So Apple invented that, that whole smartness, the whole, the whole UI where you can just touch and do a lot of things, right? So that is very good example of how, again, there are like a lot of things that Apple must have done it right, but they have figured out, user wanted a lot of things, they wanted to do a lot of things, they wanted something smart device in their pocket, they want to do booking, they want to open Google Maps and all those things, and at the same time they wanted their business to go up as well, right? So they, instead of compromising, instead of increasing the height and size of the phones, they actually figured out a very innovative way to, like, put forward the user needs and also improve the business needs, right? So that's the way of thinking, how, that's again a way of thinking or way of figuring out how you can figure out these are the actual user needs, and also this is how we can like achieve the business objective with those user needs. So that's the thing that we do as a product designer, right? We can't always stop, "Acha, these are the user needs and this is business need, and let's connect them." There are like always ways to balance those or connect those without even focusing on one part, right? You can't just say, I want to focus on user needs, so let's provide these item, or vice versa as well, right? I want to focus on business objective, and let's compromise on the user side and provide the business side. So we have to find that innovative part, that common point between user needs, business needs. Danish, hope I answered the question. How to build an outstanding portfolio as a career switcher or a fresher? So simple answer will be just say the truth, right? Be your own in your portfolio. There are like a lot of templates, templatized portfolio, but I can say, like, if you tell the truth, why you want to switch it, what you can do in the product design, how you can create an impact, I think that will be the outstanding and very simple portfolio as well, right? Because people want to understand your whys, why you are switching your career, or why you think design is a great part. Again, that's a very straightforward answer, but yeah, apart from that, if you have done some work in design side, if you have built, or again, as I mentioned, like, if you have observed or created that visual library, right, then you can always share that thing. These are like the things that attracted me as a product designer, or pushed me to become a designer. So Yeah, that can be a simple advice for that outstanding portfolio. But align with you, what state designer should be a product designer circles accessibility, especially hearing or motor accessibility. Again, Avinish Bhai has hit a 6 यहाँ पे. So at what stage of the design process should a product designer? So I think when you are understanding the user needs, right? When you are performing those primary research and secondary research part, right? Those are the items. First of all, you can have that idea, or you can start focusing those, areas. You want to focus on the accessibility part. And again, the overall percentage of those people is quite less. I'm not sure the exact percentage, but roughly I can say like if I say 1% or 2% and 90% stage 98% people are good, then we can always provide things which can support those people as well, right? It need not to be focused on those people only, but that's a very good thing to have in a product because that builds user credibility and also adds a lot of user, and it also sends a good signal that your company is not just focus on 90% of the people, but also focus on those 2% of the people as well, right? So I feel you can start learning about putting those inside during those user needs and user primary research and secondary research part. And when you are thinking of the product, right, you can always think about those areas, how you can, provide something, or how you can, sketch, or how you can think about your product to support these people. And you can always test with those people as well, right? Because testing is really important.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes,
Yeah.
Nitin?
Hi, I'm actually, I also have a different question, I would say. Like we talk about integrating AI into design, right? But I have
Mhm.
a question the other way around. I wanted, like, I'm working on a project where I'm trying to design AI for a specific use case. Like I've tried, there is I think the engineering part of AI has like gone a long way where we need to design it to or tailor it to a specific needs. Otherwise, I think people are confused when to use and when not to use AI and all. So one example, I felt like the questions we ask, the response is too quick. While studying a psychology fact, like very long ago, I studied somewhere that even type is too fast for us. Writing on paper is a little better, but type is too fast. So these AI responses are a little bit overwhelming in one situation that I've seen. So how would you say we should design AI, or will there be a shift in UX principles, or how do you think this paradigm shift will be there in the this part of the design?
Okay, I think interesting one. So when we talk about the AI experience, or we have this new term called AI UX, right? So first of all, we have to think about the AI as a invisible product, right? We currently have obviously the different physical product, and we directly interact with them. And with AI, we only have two ways. One is we provide them the data. Second is we ask them a question, right, to input and all those things. So as a user, right, when we are providing that experience to our customers, right? So first of all, we should give them AI as a supportive item, right? Not as a very core functionality. Okay, this is how you can do your use cases, perform your actions, or perform your tasks as against to what you're doing right now in a normal product, right? So we should always provide that AI thing as a support item, not as a core feature. And second thing is AI is again it's always learning, right? It's not perfect right now, and I don't think like in next 20 years it will be perfect. So when the AI response, when we have the AI responses, right? So those responses again it depends on how fast your AI is or not, right? So that's fine. But when we are providing those AI responses, we have to use the natural language, which obviously they will provide in that form. But also we have to show them visually, okay, like these are the things which are changing as your screen. It can be analytics, it can be inside, or those things, right? So that users feel okay, these are the actual changes which AI is doing, but this is how it's verbally communicating to me. Okay, these are the things I'm going to change, or these are the things which I fetched for you, right? So it should be supportive, it should give me the indication, it should provide me the details, but not just the natural language processing, but it should give me like in some visual form as well. Okay, these are your data, this is what you asked, right? So it should be a conversation, not just okay, I asked something and then it gave me something in return. So that whole conversation should be humane. Human centered design again can come into this picture, where we can treat AI as a smart human, right? Which is sitting at the product level. That is again a core part of the product, right? Which is like smart, which can think of itself. So that's how I think we can think of AI UX in the product design. And also you asked like, what could be the different patterns. Again, you can currently we only focus about the normal human, normal human psychology, normal human patterns. But when we talk about, smart AI or AI human, right? Let's call it AI human. Then obviously there are like certain limitations where they can't go beyond that, right? So we can always learn those things. Okay, these are the certain areas where AI can't think beyond a human, right? AI can always give you the answer which you ask them, right? Or it can give you like 3 to 4 ideas, but it can't give you another just like very creative answer. It can't think beyond certain limitations. So those are the patterns will be key in the AI UX experience, and that's how we can separate AI UX plus the human UX, right? Human psychology, human or AI psychology, right? So yeah, that will be my answer.
There is one
Hope
more question. I'm not sure who is this from, but they are mentioning that how does one with a psych degree get into the field of UX and UI design? And where should they start from? And what are the courses which you would suggest to get a head start in that field?
Okay, interesting. Psych degree and getting into the UX and UI. So I think one part of your skill set is done, which is understanding humans and human psychology. Again, from the user side, you must be having a good understanding about how they feel, how they work, and the different human behaviors. Now, to become a UI UX designer, you have to learn the product side of the thing, right? Where you have to understand how product works, how they have different concepts, how we design systems, how we build a design system, and other things as well, right? So that is the second side of the thing that you can learn as a UI UX thing, or learn about the UX UI design. And I think the second question will be the course thing, right? So I don't have any recommendation for any course, but one book is there, again, The Design of Everyday Things. So that can be a very good starting point to understand, how as a normal, how as a human we use, different products, or what are the different levels of interaction that we do with different product, right? It is whether it is a physical product or a digital product or any type of product, right? So you can always read that book, try to reread it, and understand what are the different parts of the product, right? How users and products are connected, how we interact with them, how different products are built as well, right? What are the different layers of the product. So I think that book will be a good starting point for you, and then you can obviously, when you have certain questions on that book, you will always start figuring out what are the answer for those. Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Do we have more questions? Anybody? Anything one which you would like to share as an ending note?
Yeah, so I'll again reflect back to that question, right? Still you think it's a creative job. Every day is a creative, right? Again, I wanted you to use that statement because I wanted to clarify a lot of things. But for me personally, I every day feel it's a creative day, right? Even if I'm talking to product managers, to business stakeholders, or whether I'm just solving their doubt, right? I always feel every day is a creative day, because I'll get to learn a new pain points. I get to learn a lot of new things, right? So that is my always thing, and I'm always passionate about product design, because every day is a new day, every day is excited, every day is a creative day for me. So yeah, if you want to join the product design, I really believe you should join it, because every day will be a creative day. Yeah, that's it.
Cool. I think we are towards the end of the session. A lot of questions which were really good, very good conversations also which we had, and a lot of insights also which everyone shared. So, yep, I think that is the end of the session for today. We do host these sessions once every 2 months. So, definitely we'll share all these invites and even let everyone know. And all of these sessions and are also available on our YouTube as a recording session. And even this will be available for everyone. So, yep, thanks everyone for joining this session. We'll see you once again in 2 months. Thank
Thank you so
you.
much, guys.